New York groove on this past homestand where they compelled a 5-1 record in their 6-game homestand over the Padres and the Marlins. Welcome to the Queen's Connection, episode number 19, a production of Patton Sports Creative. I am your host, Andrew Patton, joined by the co-host who is almost back to 100%, we shall say. It is Corne Hogeveen. Corne, hello. Good afternoon. How are you feeling? I know you were on the IL last week, so we had to push things back a little bit, but we don't have to go into the specifics because we don't need to give away people's medical histories.
Exactly. We don't go into specifics. If you did, we probably had to start over. But I am feeling a lot better, so ready to get this podcast going again and talk about a tremendous Mets week.
Certainly was a tremendous Mets week as the team returned home from London and looked like maybe they were shaking off some rust perhaps from the flight back, and getting readjusted to New York as they dropped the opener in that series against the Marlins 4-2. But like we had mentioned, they were facing Jesus Luzardo, who was definitely the Mets' kryptonite. Even when Luzardo was maybe not his sharpest, he still found a way to shut down the Mets pretty good. So weren't able to generate a whole lot offensively that game. So they dropped the opener to the Marlins 4-2. But the next game was very, very different from an offensive standpoint. The Mets compiled 10 runs, 3 home runs in a 10-4 win over the Marlins that David Peterson started against Braxton Garrett. The Mets were able to hammer Braxton Garrett just like they did earlier in the season. And then they capped off with a thrilling 3-2 win over the Marlins on a JD Martinez 2-run walk-off home run. So the Mets, a big series win over the Marlins, taking 2 of 3. I guess we'll just get your general takeaway from that series. Was there anything that stood out to you from their series win over the Marlins?
That's obviously it was the start that the Mets made some moves in their lineup. On Wednesday, they had Bader in the second hole, which worked because he homered early. And Thursday, they had Nimmo back in the lineup and bat him second. So good to see that that's working. And I think the bullpen especially did a tremendous job, even in a Tuesday game where all those guys were good. Only one unearned run allowed by Ottavino in that game. So the Mets Tuesday kept it close, obviously, like you mentioned. With Jose Luzardo, you take anything you get. So unfortunately, McGill, after 4 great innings, wasn't able to get through that 5th inning. Something we'll see with McGill, even if I still think he looks better. It's still a little bit of a bugaboo for McGill. So overall, yeah, a good series. I have to give credit to you because you picked Tyro Taylor for this series, actually, and he went 4 for 4 on Wednesday. So mostly I don't necessarily give you credit, but that was a tremendous pick by you because he, according to the numbers, he wasn't necessarily having a good stretch. So it was definitely a reach and a good reach by you. So kudos, Andrew.
Well, I just got a feel for the league. That's why I'm winning in fantasy baseball so much. But we don't have to get into that,
Oh,
after I defeated you this week. So just going to kick you while you're down anyway.
it's not where your start, Andrew. It's where you ended up. And last year you were last, so you weren't able
I
to
was second to last. Thank you very much.
second to last. So you weren't able to sneak into the playoffs. Well, I'm not having my best year. Obviously, I won last year, so it's not necessarily my best year. Losing my ace and number 1 overall pick in Spencer Strider didn't help. And so just sneak into the playoffs, and then I will be the Arizona Diamondbacks, but then take it all away. Because your brother, by the way, I don't know if he's listening, but he's lucky as Fuck, lucky as because he's not necessarily racking up the points, but getting wins when other people's weeks are bad, and he has a okay week in his standards. So I think honestly, you are the top dog right now. But if I am in the playoffs, I think I will beat you.
It looks like I hit a nerve with that one right there, but oh well. Well, something I took away, kind of alluded to it a little bit with McGill, but I think all the starters in this series, the Mets starters, they came out of the gate looking good, but then they kind of hit a wall a bit. Obviously, they weren't able to overcome it with McGill, but still, Peterson wasn't at his best at times on Wednesday. Severino maybe wasn't at his best on Thursday, but the Mets were still able, but they were able to keep the Mets in the game, and I think that's huge for a starter when they're not necessarily their sharpest, but they're good enough to hold down the other team and give the Mets a chance to stay in the ball game, be competitive. So that was my biggest takeaway, especially for a guy like Severino, who um, the Mets took a flyer on after that bad year with the Yankees. He's easily been their ace this year, no question about it. Probably the most deserving Met to go to the All Star game if you care about stuff like that. Um, so for him not to have his A+ stuff and just be able to hold down the Marlins enough to keep the Mets in the ball game, I thought that was a pretty telling thing about where Severino might be at. Because if that's the case last year, I think things maybe tended to spiral on him. Whereas this year, he's able to kind of just keep the Marlins at bay and not let all the traffic come around the score. So that was my biggest takeaway from this series with the Marlins.
Yeah, 10 base runners and then just allowing one run on the solo shot is. Then you pitched well on the times you needed.
Yep, no question about that. And so the Mets took 2 of 3 from the Marlins, which felt huge after the Mets had their struggles against the Marlins in Miami last month. So they welcomed the San Diego Padres, a red hot Padres team of late. They were one of the best offenses, if not the best offense in baseball for a good period of time there. And the Mets were going to look to, if they wanted to climb back into this thing, they were going to need to do the exact same thing they did against the Marlins, just win the series. Well, they did a little bit more than that, but we'll start on Friday night with Sean Manaea on the mound. Manaea, kind of the what we talked about a little bit with the starters. He started well, but then there's kind of that wall he hit in London. Didn't really have that at all in this opening game of the series. The Marlins pitched 5 really good innings for the New York Mets. Struck out 7, only 1 run that came on the Jackson Merrill home run that had to bounce off the wall to get over it. Sean Manaea, extremely good bounce back outing for him, and he added a little bit of a new wrinkle to his delivery when there's runners on bases. I'm curious to get your thoughts because we know the Mets have had their struggles with holding base runners on and whatnot, and they've been better of late. But anything to do to slow down the running game is positive. So Manaea maybe a little bit slower to the plate, but keeping an eye on the runners. So, what interesting wrinkle from Anaya. What'd you take away from his outing overall?
I think he looked great. His his sweeper was working again. I think that was the main pitch that eluded him in London, as we mentioned on our last podcast. So it was good to see that that was working. And yes, that wrinkle, I thought it was interesting. Runners didn't necessarily win when he had the leg up. I was wondering if he can, if his mind's set on home plate, if he can pivot and not balk, because that's sometimes, a little bit of an issue for lefties. But yes, it's slower to the plate, but on the other hand, he keeps that leg, in position to go to first for a long, long time, which obviously for a runner that that wants to go is iffy, especially if it's new. So I think it's a good thing. I think we see a lot of uh, well, we see that catchers are getting more and more of an opportunity to throw out runners too, instead of all those throws that actually the catchers have no chance on. So we see with Luis Torrens that that he gunned down a couple of runners, and some people will say that's on the catcher, but I think it's mostly on the pitcher. And we see that the stolen bases against us aren't necessarily. We haven't talked about the stolen bases against us, so it's mostly shown that that's not a major issue right now. So kudos to the staff, kudos to the pitchers, kudos to the catchers working with the pitchers. to get that settled out because yes, it was a major issue for us, and it's not anymore. So great.
Yeah, we should also mention, with the bullpen, with Manai just going to find the bullpen, had to shut the door, and they did. Just two base runners allowed, a walk from Diekman, a hit from Diaz in the ninth inning. Adam Ottavino going an inning and two-thirds, so a multi-out outing, or multi-inning outing, I should say, for Adam Ottavino. Interesting thing there. The Mets, their two runs in this game came from JD Martinez, fresh off his walk-off home run the night before. I'm sure JD is going to be an overall theme when we talk about the Mets in this series. Uh, but something to also mention, Edwin Diaz's first save since May. He pitched the day before and got the win when his return from the IL, but this was more in a situation that Diaz is more accustomed to, pitching with a lead in the ninth inning. The runner did get the third that got the hit off him, but he was able to shut the door. So two outings for Edwin Diaz since returning from the IL. They said the fastball velocity is up compared to when he went on. The slider maybe looked a little bit more crisp in its break. Uh, just it's just two outings, so can't get too out of hand here. But uh, just what did you see from Diaz in these two outings since his return from the IL?
Yeah, it's not. It's the velo up. It definitely was. I think he reached 100 miles an hour for the first time last week. Obviously, with the velo a little bit up, his slider will also be a little bit more crisp. Uh, and I think that the Boots said that they're really working on his pitch sequence, that he's not falling in love with one pitch and throws one pitch too many times and mixing it up better. Uh, the results were there. I think there were two terrific outings. And I think it's a definite confidence boost for Edwin Diaz because obviously it was in his head that he blew all those saves. I think it's logical that's in his head that he blew all those saves. So even if he would have looked better but blew the save on Friday, I think it will definitely be a very disappointed return for Edwin Diaz right now. But it turned out to be um, a great return for Edwin Diaz. And kudos to Jeff McNeil, who made a good play there. He's been struggling on all parts of the baseball field, in defense, in hitting, but that was tremendous play for Jeff. So and very important for not only Diaz, because I think Diaz, as we have seen that with Diaz returning to the bullpen had a pretty good week. Besides, probably one guy we're going to talk about on Sunday.
Yeah, I think if anyone who was watching the Mets this weekend, I think they have a pretty good idea of what you were alluding to or who you were alluding to there. But before we get to Sunday, we got to talk about Saturday at Citi Field with Jose Quintana taking the mound, and what a bounce back outing for Jose Quintana. We just got to say that 6 innings, 2 hits, 1 run, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts. The one run was a Jackson Merrill home run. Uh, but man, the Mets needed something from Jose Quintana after those two dreadful outings. A lot of questions, especially on here, about what is the future for Jose Quintana from a standpoint of, are they actually going to continue to start him every fifth day? Would he maybe get bumped to the bullpen like Adrian Hauser? Because now there's the only one lefty in there that's Jake Deepin because Danny Young got options. So the Mets want to have two lefties in the bullpen again. Mendoza said Quintana's going to get the start. They're going to pretty much stick with this 5-man rotation for the time being. And he rewarded his manager, no doubt, after his last two outings going a combined, I believe it was a 7 2/3, something like that. So just really wasn't getting any length. He gave him length in this outing, and he looked really, really good shutting down a Padres offense that, like we said, came into the series pretty red hot, especially Fernando Tatis Jr. So, what was the difference in this outing for Jose Quintana compared to the last two?
Staying out of the middle. I think we have seen a lot with Quintana that he just misses his spots, and pitches just blew back over the middle or reaches over the middle, and he was on the corners, just missing off the corners or on the corners. mixing his pitch as well. I think we all know Quintana is a veteran. We all know what he's capable of and what he's able to do, but um, so far he just wasn't able to. I think his command was just extremely off for the most part of the year, which also, I mean, shows in his home run rate. If he hits the corners, he doesn't allow 11 home runs or what else it's already is. I think it's now tied with uh, or just two down the total of 2022 and 2023 combined. So it shows that hitters are hitters are able to center the baseball and hit it out of the ballpark. So, but I saw good command. I saw good mixing of his pitches. I saw him go up the ladder at times. I heard the booth say that Quintana don't need to go up the ladder, but that's what he did when he refound himself in that. I think it's 2021, if I remember correctly, or 2022, where he had that good year, also with the Cardinals. He needs to go up, down, and on the corners. He needs to use every part of the zone for him to be successful. And it was luckily again because we haven't seen that a lot, but luckily it was back to that norm for Quintana. On the other hand, it's just one start. I hope he found something. I hope it's the start of a good stretch for Jose Quintana. But I also would say not get too carried away with a one successful start. I was looking in the bullpen. I don't know if I mentioned that last podcast, but in the bullpen, we were close when we saw Jose Quintana in London. And he was exactly doing what he did right there in this outing. So the bullpen looked a lot better than he did in the outing itself. Getting spotting the pitch as well, hitting the glove in when he warmed up for that London series game. So that's what he did again. Yeah, again, like I said, if his command has to be good. We have mentioned that before with Jose Quintana talking about him. He's not a guy who one can walk people and two can. He's not gonna survive if he throws bad pitches and misses his spots.
So last year, Jose Quintana in 75 and two-thirds innings, he allowed 5 home runs. This year in 72 and one-third innings, he's allowed 12. So there's your jump in the home run numbers. But you got to give credit where credit's due. This is obviously a great eye for Jose Quintana. You kind of took the words out of my mouth where let's see him do this again. Let's see a nice little stretch here where he's giving the Mets solid innings. I know we posted the clip on our Facebook page and on the YouTube from about Jose Quintana. We talked about him in our last episode, and someone was maybe being a little bit of a, a, a great white snark, shall we say, in a comment about Quintana in this outing. But I think it's fair. It was fair to question him. I'm sure a lot of people felt the same way that uh, no, he wasn't doing the job. There's Christian Scott in AAA who continues to perform well. So why are the Mets still hanging on to Quintana for a rotation spot when they have Christian Scott down below? But if Quintana is going to give you this kind of production from Saturday, if he can at least not necessarily continue to pitch 6 innings of 1 run ball, I think that might be a little bit unfair. But if he can give you at least 6 innings of 3 run ball per se, you'll take that every day of the week, especially with the way that he's been pitching since really, I would say beginning of May. That Tampa Bay start in particular was kind of the start of the downfall for Quintana in my mind. But maybe he found something. Maybe he worked with Jeremy Hefner and they kind of manipulated some stuff, and the results showed potentially on Saturday. So we'll see what happens with Quintana. He's obviously going to be getting a start against the Cubs, which is going to be a huge series, which we'll get into later. But we know Wrigley Field's an extremely friendly hitter park, so we'll see how he fares there when the ball gets up in the air at Wrigley. Something from Saturday as well. Uh, JD Martinez going 3 for 3 with 2 home runs in this game, 3 RBIs. He drew 2 walks. So every plate appearance he had on Saturday, he got on base. Um, he's red hot right now. They put him in the 3 hole with a bit of a lineup shakeup. With Nimmo in the 2 hole, that's been a very good move. Alonso got moved down to the cleanup spot. He was productive with there on Sunday in particular. We'll talk about Saturday and JD's big day. Um, the week of JD Martinez continues. Uh, just when he's on, he's on. He lengthens the lineup. Gives him more of a big power threat. And something we had talked about a little bit was, he was hitting the ball, but the power wasn't necessarily there. Well, the power is now there for JD. Just what does JD Martinez, I guess, mean for this Mets lineup when he is the JD Martinez that we've known him to be over the past couple of years?
I think a lot. I think it's just um, I've mentioned that guys like Pete Alonso and especially I think it's especially Pete. They take on so much pressure on themselves, being the guy who has to do it offensively. If Pete goes, the Mets go. We have seen it for years now, and when Pete struggles, the Mets struggle. And I think it just eases some of those guys that you have another potent hitter around. That I mean, if JD Martinez is being JD Martinez, and I think obviously we have seen a little bit of the lack of the power maybe on early on in the season, and not have a spring training late, actually a late signing, then a bit hurt, maybe rushed it back. But now we see what JD Martinez um, can do, and gives. I think it gives guys like Pete Alonso a lot of room to struggle. From I can have a little bit of a bad week, and this team can still win. I think Pete Alonso uh, didn't have a great week overall, and the Mets still won. And that's something that this team has lacked in recent years, with being too dependent on probably Lindor and Alonso. And if you add JD Martinez with it, maybe a guy like Mark Vientos, some more good hitters in that lineup that can carry you, and not always that other players look at you to carry them, but you have a veteran who has done it and who's been such a professional hitter. And I mean, it's great to see. First walk-off home run, by the way, for JD Martinez. We haven't mentioned that in his career, which is now the second time that we saw a first walk-off home run from a major league veteran and ending up with the Mets. Also, Jose Bautista with his walk-off grand slam against Tampa Bay in 2018 was his first walk-off home run. So that's a bit starting to become a bit of a Mets thing. Veterans hitting their first walk-off home run, or first home run in Bartolo Colon's case, in their Mets tenure.
Well, JD Martinez has certainly proven to be a money well spent acquisition for the Mets this season. So the Mets win on Saturday 5-1. Should also mention that Brandon Nimmo had 2 RBIs in this game as well. So the 5 runs came from JD Martinez and Brandon Nimmo. We'll talk about Brandon in just a little bit. So let's go to Sunday, the finale of this 3-game series with the Padres with Tyler McGill against Dylan Cease. And McGill, kind of a little bit of what we talked about in that outing against the Marlins, getting to 2 outs, but then having a little bit of a tough time trying to put guys away. That happened a couple times in this outing, but overall finishes the day with 5 innings, 5 hits, 2 runs, two walks, 5 strikeouts. Um, so I think this is kind of just maybe where McGill is kind of, I don't want to say, no, coming back down to earth a little bit, because we've seen him be really good, obviously the Dodger outing, but I think it's unfair to expect those kinds of outings day in, day out from McGill. I think he's more somewhere in the middle. I think he can probably give you maybe a little bit more length, ideally, but he held the Padres to 2 runs in 5 innings. You'll take that against any team. Um, Anything stood out to you about McGill on Sunday?
That's funny because I was looking at that start, and I had maybe a little bit of a worse version of John Maine vibes in that outing. A lot of foul balls, and that always reminds me of John Maine. Pretty good stuff. I think we can say that right now with the added secondary pitches and the improved secondary pitches. Um, McGill has pretty good stuff, but still, hitters are able to, foul off some pitches, and which limited him for not going as deep as you might want. Overall, you take it. I think 5 innings, 2 runs against the Padres is definitely something you would be happy with Tyler McGill. And I think overall this season he's been pretty good. Um, and I think, yeah, like you said, this is maybe who McGill is. If you have McGill, too much McGill's type of arms in your rotation, you need a bullpen that can provide innings for you.
Yeah, I think, and when we say this is probably who Tyler McGill is, that's not a bad thing. We're just saying, you think about the start he had in 2022, where he was pitching like an ace. You think about the start against the Dodgers this year, he looked like an ace. I don't think McGill is necessarily an ace. I mean, he's got potential ace stuff, just the high velo fastball, the splitter that's really been coming along, but the Mets don't really need him to be that guy. He can be a 5, 6 inning guy, and then hopefully he keeps the team at bay, and the bullpen can just finish it off from there. So, not saying anything negative about the sign from McGill. I think this is kind of what he is. Um, I think it's just sometimes maybe people's expectations get too high for Tyler McGill just based off his high velocity and the development of the splitter and whatnot. I think McGill is a solid 3, 4, 5 in any rotation. I think if that's what he is, particularly maybe more of 4, I think would be an ideal spot. But no, that's still really good. You need guys like that in the rotation. We can't have the 5 aces that we thought we once had. I mean, look how well that turned out but that was mostly, I'd say, injuries and whatnot. But McGill overall a good solid outing. And then I mean, really the Mets spotted him, all those runs early in the game. You figure the response that they got, the Lindor leadoff home run after the Padres uh, were able to scrap out a run in the first inning. Alonso with a 3-run homer off Dylan Cease, we should mention, who is right now the Padres ace with Darvish on the IL, Musgrove's on the IL. So really getting to the Dylan Cease in this outing. They get 7 runs off him and less than 4 innings of work for Dylan Cease. So the offense continues to shine for the New York Mets. The thing that starts to get interesting is the 8th inning. So with McGill only going to 5, they were looking for some length from Adrian Hauser. He finishes the day going 2+ with a run, 3 hits, a strikeout. So Profar leads off the 8th inning with a single to right field. I think Gary said in the broadcast it was a catchable ball for Marte. I went back and watched. I thought it's maybe 50-50. I tend to lean more to maybe he couldn't quite get there. Um, but Mendoza decides to go to Jake Diekman with some lefties coming up, Cronenworth, Jackson Merrill, Peralta. They're all there. Machado sandwiched in there. And things don't go well for Jake Diekman. He had some issues throwing the ball and some walks. You're raising your hand like you're a third grader. So would you like to share something with the class?
Machado wasn't in there because he was ejected.
Oh, that's right. That's right. He was ejected. I misread the box score. So it's that's right, because Wade was in there, and then they pinched hit with Donovan Solano. That's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
The Machado spot was in there,
Yeah.
but it wasn't necessarily in there of
That's
the
why I
game.
was raising my hand because we have to fix that. We have to fix that quickly.
Well, anywho, that the Machado spot did reach.
Yeah,
So just a lot of trouble for Jake Diekman in this outing, and that's the thing with Jake Diekman. He could look really good one day, he could look really bad the other day. Um, the Mets are able to get out of it with the lead, but it goes from 7-2 to 7-6. They had to have Drew Smith come in and finish things off. Um, so obviously the question is, did they give Hauser a bit of a quick hook there? Hauser was at 34 pitches at that point. So they decided to go to Diekman with the lefties coming up. Um, was that the right move in your mind by Mendoza? I mean, obviously it's to be like, well, it's probably not the right move because it didn't work out. But you have all those lefties
Yeah,
coming up. Diekman's your only lefty in the bullpen. This is no, if all goes well, the only time you're gonna face these lefties for the rest of the game. Um, so what's if if Mr. Corne Hogeveen was the manager of the New York Mets, would he have gone and taken Hauser out and put Diekman in, or with a 7-2 lead, would you have left Hauser in there to maybe get a ground ball?
I probably would have kept Hauser in, but that doesn't mean that I think it was a terrible move. I think it's always easy to look after, an outing like this and then second guess that move. I think every manager shouldn't. I mean, maybe expect, but I think Diekman, with his track record, uh, should be able to get some outs there and not walk. And especially, and I mean, if Diekman gets, just a normal throw in the shortstop, it's a whole different inning. You have two outs and no runners on, and he probably doesn't walk people because we tend to see that as well when a pitcher or something doesn't go work out that way. Um, that it balloons. So this is that kind of moment where uh, one error just grows into a very difficult spot. So looking back at it, I don't think it's necessarily a bad move by Carlos Mendoza. I think in a situation with a 7-2 lead, uh, I would have kept the sinker baller in and maybe get a ground ball there. For me, I don't know who the hitter up was necessarily. You probably mentioned it, but I know it was a left-handed hitter. But I think Hauser would probably, maybe get a double play ball or get some outs. Even if that run would have scored, I mean, you still have a 7-3 lead, so it would give him a little bit more of a leash than the 2 innings in 2 innings plus he got. On the other hand, Diekman came in and he got what he needed, a double play ball. Just I don't know what happened on that throw because it was one of the worst throws I ever seen to second base. It was dreadful. So yeah, second guessing after how the inning transpired to me is a little bit silly.
It was Jake Cronenworth who came up.
Yeah, yeah, right.
So
Yeah, thank you.
Uh, yeah, it was an interesting decision in the game. Obviously, like you said, Diekman did get the ground ball. They could have turned two, but he instead of throwing it to Francisco Lindor, I guess he thought maybe Harrison Bader was going to come cover second base. I'm not
Yeah,
sure,
maybe,
but
maybe even Starling Marte, in the run.
right.
But
But yeah, the air really was the start of a poor outing there for Jake Diekman. He only goes a third of an inning, no hits, 3 runs. Only one was earned because of the error, and the 2 walks. It was just a very disappointing outing for Jake Diekman. Drew Smith came in, cleaned things up, but even his outing, there was a couple hard hit balls there. Hopefully, and luckily Bader was had the vertical to grab that ball right out into the center field. Uh, so the Mets go to the bottom of the eighth now in a 1-run ball game. It makes Edwin Diaz start to get loose. Fortunately for the Mets, they didn't have to use him because they tacked on 4 in the eighth inning, got all those runs back. So they're up 11-6. Sean Reed Foley comes in, shuts the door with 4-3 putouts to end the game. It's a sweep of the Padres for the New York Mets. Um, Pete Alonso, 5 RBIs in this game. Lindor, 2 RBIs. JD Martinez, Brandon Nimmo, all with RBIs. Luis Torrens with a big home run in the eighth inning, right after all of that fiasco in the top half of the inning for the Mets pitchers. Bader with an RBI. But really, the thing that stands out from those guys I listed is the top 4 right there: Lindor, Nimmo, Martinez, Alonso. They combined for, if I do my math correctly, 9 of the 11 runs for the New York Mets. They drove in 9 of the 11. Um, it appears that the Mets have maybe found the order in the top 4. with Lindor in the leadoff spot, Nimmo in the two hole, JD in the three spot, Alonso batting cleanup. Brandon Nimmo, I sent it to you. 7 for 16 in the two hole with three RBIs. Um, so maybe they finally have got their got things in order for the lineup with those top four right there because those are the guys that are going to get the offense going for the New York Mets. They are going to lead the way as we talked about. Um, so is what's your just I mean honestly it's working. It's worked the past couple games. Uh, just your thoughts on Nimmo in the two hole because I think that's an interesting spot. I thought there was the potential that they would maybe move him down rather than move him up, especially with the way Marte has been playing. And figure maybe they want to put Marte in the two hole, but they go with Nimmo. It's definitely paid off. So Carlos Mendoza or the analytics staff, whoever, um, mixing and matching, and looks like they found the potential winning combination here.
Yeah, Nimmo in front of Martinez probably also helps because it's probably getting a little bit more pitches to hit. Um, so if it works, it works. I think all those four guys you mentioned are obviously a big part of your offense, so they all have to be at least close to the top of the order. Could have gone with Marte second and Nimmo fifth. I wouldn't be necessarily against that either, but um, I think overall I still think that overall these four are the guys that you look at to carry your lineup. So um, finally seems like I don't necessarily believe 100% that it's uh, also bound to happen, so to speak. Um, we knew even when Lindor was batting third that Lindor wasn't as ice cold as he was in April, so that he would eventually get going. We could have expected that JD Martinez at some point is going to show a little bit more power. Pete Alonso is probably going to get his hot stretch going at some point because he's not having a great year. So I think it's more that those guys were due than necessarily the lineup spot. But hey, if right now it's probably um, this works, so we're gonna put this top four out there, and if it helps Nemo, maybe get a little bit of a different mindset or anything, maybe a little bit more eased in, or a little bit of the pressure off with Martinez behind him. Fine, if it works, it works.
Well, it is certainly working for the New York Mets of late. So the Mets now find themselves at 33 and 37. You might say, well, that's not a very overall impressive record. Well, it's good enough to be a game and a half out of the last wild card spot. Now, there are a lot of teams in front of the New York Mets. The Cubs, Pirates, Reds, Giants, Diamondbacks, Nationals, Padres currently hold the last wild card spot in the National League. Uh, but they're back in this thing. I mean, maybe they were I mean, I think Lindor said in the posting, he was like, "Well, I don't think we were ever necessarily out of it." But the way they were playing, it had all the signs of the saying that the Titanic is going to sink. Uh, but they're still afloat, and they got some big games coming up against some of those teams I listed. Because they got the Cubs this weekend, and then there's a stretch to begin July. I believe it's four in DC, four in Pittsburgh, and then three at home against the Nationals. So that's a big, huge stretch. Obviously, it's a couple weeks away. Don't want to get too ahead of ourselves because there's still some games to be played in June. But the way they played this past week, or this whole month, I would say, they've they've earned this spot to be they've earned this spot to be only a game and a half out, and they're gonna have to play some leapfrog. But if they win these ball games, they're gonna climb up the standings. Um, so it's just an interesting spot, interesting next couple of weeks to see how the Mets are going to play when maybe the games are, even though we're in June, creeping into July, they're important ball games. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah, definitely. I also think it's worth noting that yes, we have to leapfrog a lot of teams, but 1.5 games, so it's maybe a half game back on some, maybe one on some. So that's very very close. On the other hand, I also have to mention we are also a bit lucky that we are still in there because I mean, if there are two of those teams that were uh, maybe playing a little bit better, then the reach would have been a lot worse. The reason that there are so many teams close is that it seems like everybody is beating up on everybody and everybody's losing from everybody. Maybe besides the Marlins and the Rockies, the rest is just one big group of mediocre where we also part of. So um, I think in other season, I think this is definitely a first, even with the three wild cards. That it's that packed in any league. Um, so yeah, it's on the. I do believe if you look at the teams, I don't think we all that we can't compete with any of those teams on paper. So that's probably a good thing. I think this ball club isn't that bad. I think this ball club has gone through a terrible, terrible stretch. Other teams probably too, because we all don't necessarily have a great record, but um, we also had a pretty difficult schedule, I think. So that maybe could work in our favor. But yeah, we still have to win those games. So now it's time to beat up on a lot of your competition because it's a lot of teams. If this, if this is gonna stay like it is right now, packed, a packed mediocre group for two teams, then you have a lot of, yeah, a lot of, how you say that, rivals for those two spots. So you need to win a lot of series because every series against one of those teams could be huge. Probably you're gonna eventually. I still believe that you're gonna see some teams that now maybe get a good winning streak going and keep it up. And some of the teams that gonna slow down a bit and be out of it. But right now, it could be us that goes up with it and be in contention, and with how the season started. Uh, I think that's all we can ask for.
No question about that, and I think this nice recent stretch for the New York Mets is just all thanks to Grimace.
Obviously, it's all thanks to Grimace. It's funny how baseball works in that way, right? It's silly things that that gets people to believe that that's the. How many times do we see blah 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 since the record now is blah 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 since Oompa Loompa throws a pitch. I mean, that's so weird. It's really a baseball thing. That's so weird.
It is very much a baseball thing. 5-0 since Grimace threw out the first pitch. The numbers do not lie whatsoever.
Yeah, you love those kind of things. I know that.
Well, I'm a, I'm, I'm a little stitious. Maybe not superstitious, but I'm a little stitious.
That's funny.
Oh man. Well, the New York Mets are red hot. There's no question about that. Playing some good baseball at the moment, and hopefully, you talk about teams that are maybe going to keep ascending, and then there are going to be some that will descend. Hopefully, the Mets are more on the up and up rather than uh, on the descending side of the of games the next couple of weeks. So, well, that's what's going on with the New York Mets. We'll see how this minor league report goes with Mr. Corne Hogeveen because there's probably a lot to talk about since I mean, Jesus, it's got like War and Peace there, so this could be a while. But there's a lot of good things to be talking about in the Mets minor league system. So the floor is yours.
Yes, since the Dominican Summer League and then a week, obviously it doesn't help because I have some pages full, so I'm gonna get through them just like the other times and just get going. Dominican Summer League, Randy Guzman is off to a good start. 90-year-old Dominican is hitting 333 with a 977 OPS. Jose Guevara went 2-2 scoreless with 4 strikeouts. Now has 10 strikeouts over 5 1/3 innings of work. Shortstop Jose Subero went 2 for 4 with a double and RBI on Tuesday. He's now hitting 368 with a 961 OPS. Alex Acosta hit his first home run in the Mets organization on Tuesday. Ryan Reyes hits his first and second home run of the year. His OPS is up to 1233 in the early going. He's 21 years old, so very old for the Dominican Summer League, but hitting either way is hitting well. So I probably expect a Florida Complex League promotion soon. 80-year-old Vladdy Gomez had a good day. The shortstop went 2 for 2 with 3 RBIs and 3 walks on Thursday. Another 80-year-old, Devi Paulino, he struck out 7 over 4 innings of two-run ball. Highly touted catcher Giovanni Rodriguez hit his hit his first pro home run. He's struggling a bit so far, but still a good name to uh, keep an eye on. The youngest player in the Mets organization right now is Diogo Diaz, and he has played well. He went 3 for 3 on Friday and has a 780 OPS. It's more lacked a little bit of power, but I mean that's kind of expected when you're a 16-year-old. And the Mets had Luis Montero making a start, and the name sounds familiar because it's the nephew of Rafael Montero. He went 4 strong innings, allowing just 1 earned run and 2 hits with 1 walk and 2 strikeouts. Florida Complex League, Omar Victorino had a nice outing with 3 innings of 1 run ball. The 19-year-old struck out 4. He now has 19 strikeouts in 15 and 2/3 inning, but still fairly high ERA. Lefty Bryans Barreto went 2 scoreless frames, striking out 3 on Saturday. He has a 3.05 ERA with 28 strikeouts in 20 and 2/3 of innings. St. Lucie Mets, Colin Houck, Boston Barrow, Ronald Hernandez all homered during the week. Barrow added another home run later in the week. Houck did leave the game on Sunday, so interesting what comes out of that. Bryce Montes de Oca made his return to the mound after his Tommy John surgery. He allowed 3 runs, getting just 1 out. In his first outing, was a little bit better in his second outing, allowed just 1 run. So Bryce Montes de Oca, we know him. You know that 102 mile an hour sinker with great movement. So probably get the rust off of his arm after his return to the mound. And Jack Wenninger struck out 8 over 5 and 2/3 innings of 3-run ball. Brooklyn Cyclones, Jeffrey De Los Santos, Nick Morabito, and Christopher Suero all had a good start of the week. Suero and De Los Santos were both mentioned in last week's podcast, so good to see them keeping it going. Joelmy Ramirez pitched well again, throwing 4 scoreless innings. He's lowered his ERA to 3.32. Nick LaRusso hit his 8th and 9th home run of the year, still sporting a nice 860 OPS. And Nick Morabito went 2 for 3 with 2 walks and 3 stolen bases on Thursday. Cool off a little bit, but still is having a great year. Binghamton catcher Jake Osborne hit a go-ahead grand slam in the 8th to help Brooklyn win earlier in this week, 6-3 win. Good time to hit his first home run of the year. Justin Jarvis pitched 4 scoreless innings out of the pen, allowing just 1 hit, no walks, and 4 strikeouts. He made a start on Sunday and was solid over 6 innings, allowing 2 runs, 4 hits, and not walking hitter again. So back-to-back outings without a walk. He struck out 5 in that outing. Jalen Palmer keeps raking. He hit his 5th and 6th of the year in the week. In 23 AA games. Your boy Wilkin Ramos finally allowed runs. He allowed 3 runs over 1 1/3 inning of work. He did pitch a scoreless innings yesterday to get back on track. Ryan Clifford, he has been amazing. He walked it off on Friday with a 2-run homer. He went 2 for 2 with a home run, a double, and 2 walks. Did yet another home run on Saturday. His OPS is all the way up to 911 for Binghamton. So he is enjoying his time out of Brooklyn, I would say. Nolan McLean hit a second home run on Friday, an opposite field shot. He's still struggling on both sides in AA. Jeremiah Jackson homered and drove in 3 on the same day on Friday. Another guy who has struggled a bit this year. It's so good to see him having some success. And Brandon Sprout struck out 8 in 3 and 2/3 innings of 1-run ball. He has a 1.52 ERA with 38 strikeouts in 29 and two thirds innings in Double A. He's just keep doing it. He'll moving on pretty quickly, I would say. Syracuse, actually, I think one of the few times that I have the most notes about the Syracuse Mets. So Brett Beatty has been amazing in Syracuse. It's his third home run. He was 11 for 21 with a home run, three doubles, seven RBIs after his London series appearance. Now hitting 429 with a 1217 OPS after going over 4 on Sunday, so showed how good he was. Hayden Sanger also homered and drove in three in a 2 for 3 days. OPS creeping up back to 800, so it's getting close to 800 again after struggling a little bit for weeks. Blake Tidwell allowed three solo home runs on 402 thirds of work. His walk rate is up in Triple A, and his ERA is now 4.76. So need to get adjusted to that league. Jose Butto with a nice outing, 5 and 2/3 innings of 1 run ball. He allowed 5 hits and 2 walks and struck out 4. Rylan Bannon, your boy, homered on Wednesday for his 11th of the year. But my boy, Luke Ritter, homered twice on Friday and twice on Sunday. So Bannon versus Ritter OPS match is 866 for Rylan Bannon and 903 for Luke Ritter. So I'm ahead there. I know my minor league stuff at least. Maybe you win in fantasy, which you know all the players there. Everybody knows, which is easy to pick. But I know the tougher things in life. Christian Scott was solid again. 3 and 2/3 innings of 1 run ball. Guess how the run scored again? I mentioned was again the home run ball. He struck out 6. Luis Angel Acuna had a day to remember on Thursday. He went 4 for 5 with 4 RBIs. Also had a strong day on Sunday where he hit his 4th home run of the year, the 2 for 5 day. Dominic Hamill, who has struggled this year, pitched well on Thursday, going 6 innings of 2 run ball. Another guy you liked, Mr. Thomas, hit his first, second, and third AAA home run of the year after his well-deserved promotion. Has been struggling somewhat at AAA since the promotion, but had a tremendous week. Got his OPS back over 700. And Austin Allen returned to AAA after an injury and went 2 for 4 on Saturday. That was the minor league minute, or 4 or 5, or whatever it was.
Well, it was very quick. I should say. It felt like a very quick minor league minute. Get it all through that. Get all that information out there in a timely manner. I'll let you catch your breath here because something I've noticed, and obviously you can correct me if you think I'm wrong, but we saw Christian Scott just go to 3 and 2/3. Talk about Sprout going to 3 and 2/3. Tidwell came out of the bullpen a couple weeks ago, maybe a week ago. I remember that. So obviously you look at the box scores and Sprout with 8 strikeouts. That in 3 and 2/3 that obviously stands out. But the people might be wondering why. Well, why are they going 3 and 2/3? I would imagine this is all just based on the innings that the innings limit, maybe the organization has put on these guys for this year. So, don't read too much into the 3 and 2/3. It's obviously these guys they're not hurt. They didn't struggle or anything like that. I think it's just uh, workload management is the way to put it. I would say.
Yeah, it's the reason Christian Scott was sent down because if he's in the majors, you probably want more length out of him because it's more important. So that's why he's in the minor leagues. He makes a couple of starts, but they limit his hitting. I think I mentioned a couple of podcasts ago that Christian Scott's organizational um, record or top innings per year was like 87 and 2/3 innings or something like that. So you're obviously not going to push him.
No, no, I definitely don't think they will. Obviously, I think Scott will be making some more starts at the major league level this year. I think they're just giving him a little bit of a blow per se, just to be so if the Mets theoretically, if things continue to go well and they're in it, then they have some innings to work with Christian Scott come August, September, and whatnot. So hopefully that's a position the Mets are in. But obviously, to be in that position, you got to win some ball games. and they're going to have to try to win some ball games against the Texas Rangers, who are also started to find a little bit of a groove here. I know they played well against the Dodgers, but maybe a little bit after that they hit a little bit of a snag as the Rangers are 33 and 36, Mets are 33 and 37, so not a whole lot of difference between these two teams record wise. Obviously, maybe in some aspects they're different. But the record, you are what your record says. It's what Bill Parcells used to say. He was a football coach. I know some people on here would know who that name. I know you don't, so that's why I had to give the clarifications per se. So it all starts tonight in Texas as my dog picks the loudest chew toy he can find to uh, chew on at this current moment. So the Mets and Rangers going at David Peterson against John Gray tonight. It's an 8:05 first pitch. They're all 8:05 first pitches in this series. Tuesday night, Luis Severino against Michael Lorenzen. And then on Wednesday, it is Sean Manaea against Andrew Heaney. So a battle of lefties on Wednesday. So player of the series, we actually didn't do one the last series against the Padres. We just kind of slipped through the cracks there on that one. So I picked the pitcher this time, and you picked the batter, and I will let you go first. Who do you think is going to have a good offensive series down in Arlington, Texas?
I think offensively and also defensively, so an overall series, which position player is going to help us a ton. And I'm going with Harrison Bader, coming off a decent series, obviously, against the Padres. I think with the Texas Rangers, you need some outfield defense. I don't necessarily know if this is true because I don't know the stats, but I have a feeling it's a hit the ball in the air type of lineup. So I'm going with Harrison Bader being an important part, not only on the offense but also on the defense.
I'm going to go with Luis Severino for the pitcher of the series. That's not like, oh wow, that's a great pick. Well, way to go outside the box there. But Um, I think this Texas lineup they got some bats, obviously led by Corey Seager, and I think this is a kind of game or a potential kind of game where, um, especially go up against Lorenzen, who's pitched very very well for the Texas Rangers this year. You're going to need to limit some of the offensive production, potential offensive production that the Rangers can have and have shown at times this year. If there's someone who I believe can shut down this Texas lineup, for 6 innings or so, I think that's going to be Luis Severino. So hopefully, I'm going to be right about this, just like I am about some other things. And Luis Severino pitches a solid outing for the New York Metropolitans.
Yeah, right. I hope so too, Andrew.
Well, I got anything else to share? Any last remarks to share with the crowd? Any jokes at my expense before we get out of here today?
No, you probably do that after the show like you used to because you're afraid of doing it on air. So
Not afraid to do it on there. I'm just worried that something I might say could get us canceled. So
yes,
gotta.
5 listeners would be very offended.
I'm sure they would. I'm sure they definitely would. Well, thanks for fighting through today. We appreciate it, especially that minor league minute. There's a lot of talking for you there. So good job. Appreciate you joining as always, and rest up. And hopefully, get some wins for the New York Mets these next couple days before taking off for Chicago.
Gonna beat the world champs.
Love it. Love the confidence. All right, that's going to be it for this episode of the Queen's Connection. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook. Just search the Queen's Connection. We'll probably just be the first thing you see there. Also, make sure to like, subscribe if you listen on Spotify or on YouTube. So just chime in when you want to as well. We always appreciate the interaction, whether if it's snarky or not. We like the interaction. So that's going to be it for this episode. Enjoy the 3-game series against the Texas Rangers, and we will talk to you before the 3-game weekend series with the Chicago Cubs.